Alright, it's been about a week or so, a little past due here for another video, but go ahead and we'll dive right into it. And maybe we're at a little bit of out of practice or not, but we'll see how we do. Just the queen, nothing special about that hand. Pair of queens, nothing special about that either. Got a quad there, that's nice. We have a king, ace suited, +9, penalty, flush penalty. We're going to keep these three, keep the 3 to the flush. Multipliers are too low. This is one of those ones where you change strategy at, I believe it's 72. You would drop that 9 of hearts. We can also demonstrate that really quick. Just to refresh our own memory, because it's been a few days, it's been pretty busy, so let's see, let's go see what's at 72. And at 72, yes, you would drop the, oops, at 72, so at 71 you would keep it. So anything below 71 you would keep the 3 to the flush. And at 72 you would go for just the king ace suited. In our case, because the multipliers are still low, we're going to keep the 3 to the flush. A pair of 10s. Got a pair of 9s. Again, 3 to the flush. This time, because it's king jack suited, you would dump the 8 at a multiplier sum of 32. So multipliers are still low. We're going to keep all 3. We got there 2, 3, 2, 3, 6. Yes. We have a double insight straight flush draw. Yes, that's all we got there is a double insight straight flush draw. So we're going to go for that. Just the king. Wow. Just a pair of kings again. Keeping them both because the ace has a flush penalty with the 5. 2 pair in this game. We always keep 2 pair. Pair of 6s. Pair of 2s. Jack queen off suit. Pair of 6s. King queen off suit. Pair of 10s. King 10. This is one of those interesting ones. You do have king 10 suited, but you also do have an inside straight against that king. I believe at 12, we'll demonstrate this one because this one can be a little tricky. So, because you have king 10 suited, let's back this off, clear this out. So we'll do it from the start. So we got king 10, 7, 8, and then 6. As you can see, it's the inside straight, and I believe it's at 12. You would go for the king 10. Yeah. So at king 10, you would go for that at multiplier sum of 12 and above. Otherwise, you would go for the inside straight. But if there was let's actually go back. Let's talk about this a little more. Let's change this up a little bit. Let's say that it wasn't king 10 suited. Let's just say there was a king 9, 6, 7, 10, and there was a 10 in the hand. This would actually bump the inside straight up to 14 before you would go for that king, because there was a 10 in the hand and it wasn't suited, and we do have a flush penalty with the 9 to the king. This is one of those hands where, because you have the flush penalty and there was 9 and 10, it bumps up when you would go for the inside straight over the king. But again, because king 10 is part of the royal, it does tend to bump up us keeping this at a much lower rate, because of king 10 suited is not really a flush penalty with a 10 in such a way. It's not like straight or flush interference. It's like, it's just part of the royal flush, right? So it's, you have a better, you don't have a, it's kind of a hard one to explain exactly. It is just the proper hold. You would do this regardless, but because again multiplier sum are lower and you're trying to fish for a straight, that's why you would keep it at that low of multiplier. Probably not explaining that the best, but we'll see if we can talk about some more of these. Again, here's Queen Jack 10. You never hold Queen Jack. You never do a 3 to the flush over Queen Jack suit, offsuit, unless there's an ace or there's straight interference. We haven't really seen one of those yet. We'll talk about them when they come up, but this is one of those hands that's really misplayed all the time. Queen Jack offsuit, usually always keep the 10, unless you get into the low 100s. It's like 105 or 6 or 7, somewhere around there. We discussed this in a prior video. We just have a king here. King, queen, suited. Hopefully my explanations are not too botched today. It's been very overwhelming lately with work. Let's see. Just the king again. Pair of kings. Pair of jacks. Pair of twos. Pair of sevens. We got a full house out of that. Ochos, por favor. Pair of fours. Queen, king suited. Again, queen, jack 10. You're always trying to go for that because you can fill the straight like we did there. Pair of twos. That's a nice little hit. Quads times 3. Alright, I think we're up on this video so far. Just the jack here. We'll keep it going. Queen, king offsuit. You got an inside straight. 3 to the flush again. This is 72 where you would drop that 4 because there is no other high card or a 10. Jack king offsuit. Got a pair of 10s. Again, a pair of 10s. Pair of 8s. Some 4s. We got 3 to the flush. Jack plus 3 to the flush. You have a 9, so you have straight interference. The 9 is not penaltied to the jack, but it does constitute straight interference, so that does bump up when you would drop the 5 and 6 of clubs against that jack. Our multipliers are way too low, so we're going to be keeping the 3 to the flush there. Doesn't always work out. Okay, here's a perfect example of one of those hands where this is one of those examples where you'll always keep. Again, you have a flush. You have a 10 penalty with ace. You do have an ace-10 penalty, which is always the worst penalty to the ace you can have. Although you always do keep ace with another offsuit high card if the ace has a flush penalty. In this instance, this is a perfect example of an instance where you would always keep it, even if you had cards that were 6, 7, 8, or 9 and above. You would still keep the ace and jack because of that 10 penalty. Let's demonstrate kind of better what I'm talking about here. We've talked about this a little bit before, so we'll kind of touch on this again. So here's ace 10, jack 2, and then 5. So as you can see, no matter what the multipliers are, we're always keeping both. And that, again, is because there is an ace 10 there. So let's do this, too. Let's say we have 6 and 7. So now we have no cards near, no low straight interference with the ace. You can see we're still keeping it if ace is suited to a 10 penalty. But watch what happens when we change this 10 to a 9. Okay, so we still have we're still going for all, oh, I'm sorry, because I have to redo this. 9, and I need to make sure it's not the 10 penalty to the ace. I kind of messed that up. Bear with me, I'm sleep deprived here. Okay, here's what I'm talking about. So now you can see we still have an ace flush penalty. There is a 10 in the hand. And you can see we are only going for ace because there's no low straight interference. That's because it's not an ace 10 penalty. This would be ace at 62 is when you would go for just the ace. Anything below that, you would keep them both. But again, because we have the ace 10 penalty, That's why we are going to be always keeping both no matter what, if that makes any sense. Three to the flush. Okay, here's one of those other hands. Queen 10 suited over ace 2-4. You will never go for ace in this hand ever. You have straight interference and flush interference with ace. So there's no interference, straight interference with Queen 10 suited. So this is another one we're going to talk about a little bit here. We haven't talked about this one at all yet. So this hand is always going to be Queen 10. And the reason why is there is no straight interference with the Queen. Meaning we don't have a 8, 9, or we don't have an 8 or a 9. We just have Queen 10 suited. So as you can see from what I'm demoing here, this is pretty much what the hand we have. You can see we're always going to go for Queen 10 because we have it suited and there is no straight interference. This applies to even if it's like ace with no penalty, flush penalty or not. If the cards are 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, if they're 2 through 7, unless you have 6, 7. So basically if it's 2, 6 or 2, 7, if it's 2, 6 or 2, 7, 3, 7, you know, it doesn't really matter. The only one that does matter is 6, 7. When you get to 6, 7, it becomes ace at, I believe it's 64. 64, where you at? So at 64, you would go for ace if you had 6, 7. But that's one of those ones. So 6, 7, you go for the ace. Again, that goes back, that harkens back to like kind of like what we talked about in the last explanation with the ace 10 penalty, ace flush penalty with a 9, but there's a 10 in the hand and cards. There's no low straight interference. That's why you go for that with 6, 7 because it just bumps that up. But if you had any other combination below that, so if you had, again, if you had ace, Queen 10 and ace, let's say ace 2, 4, again, it's always going to be the Queen 10. If there's an 8 in the hand, it changes everything. If you have, let's say, Queen 10 versus ace 2 like that, this is ace at 30 because of the 8. So if I go there, you see it becomes, this should be, oh no, I'm sorry, because I gave it a flush penalty. Let me take that flush penalty off of that ace. 8, there we go. So now that the ace has no flush penalty, you can see it's it just becomes that at 30. If the ace had the flush penalty to the 8, let's say it was that 8 suited, then this would always be Queen 10. So if the rule is if there's an 8 in the hand and there is a flush penalty to ace, okay, and there's an 8 in the hand, no matter if it's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, it has to be, it can't be a 10 or a 9. It has to be just 8. The way I look at this is it has to be, again, you have to have an 8, Queen 10 suited, and an ace with a flush penalty. Then if that's their case, you're always going to keep the Queen 10. But if you keep the 8 and there is no flush penalty, then that becomes ace at 30. And if you were to make this, there's another variant of this. If that, so let's say the 2 becomes a 5 now, okay? If the 2 becomes a 5, it becomes ace at 29. Okay. If you become 6, 8, Queen, this would become ace at now at 20. Again, the reason being because of straight interference, low straight interference with ace. Okay. So 6, 8 or 7, 8 with a Queen 10 suited, then it becomes ace at 20. 6, 8, 7, 8. 6, 7 we said was 64. 6, 8, 6, 8, 7, 8 would be 20, okay? But again, if you had the flush penalty, here, then this will be Queen 10. And I believe in this situation, even with the flush penalty, I believe this is still always going to be Queen 10 because it's Queen 10 suited, yes. I know this is kind of a lot to take in on this hand, but this is kind of a really tricky one. Jack 10 is very similar. It's really weird too, but it has to do with how much low straight interference you have when it comes to this hand. It has to do with the low straight interference with ace and the straight interference with the Queen 10 suited. The only other situation involving this would be if you had a 9, So if you had queen 10 suited and 9, and then let's say 2, the 9 becomes what I call regular strategy. If you have, this goes back to like if you had a 10 in the hand, two offsuit high cards, so you had ace, jack, ace, king, ace, queen, and a 10 in the hand. Then if there's a 9 in the hand, this just harkens back to the regular strategy. So 9-2 would be ace. This would be ace at 13. Or no, I'm sorry. Do we have a flush penalty? No, this would be, I'm sorry, this would be ace at 20. So this is regular strategy. Yeah, it'd be ace at 20. I was thinking if we had a 6 in the hand with that too. So if I put a 6 in there, we'll change this to a 6, then this would become ace at 13. There we go. Again, I know this is kind of a lot to digest. I kind of went over a lot of stuff on this one. But this is kind of a more complicated, confusing hand. Again, you to make it work, you really have to look at the, like I said, what you have in the hand. You have to look at, does ace have a flush interference, and does ace have low straight interference, and then you have to look at, does queen 10 have straight interference, and that's kind of how you would there kind of dissect when not to do based on the multipliers after that. Again, that was a really long, drawn-out explanation of that. I may do a dedicated video more explaining that because it probably didn't explain it the greatest. I can probably do a better job of that when I'm not super tired. Here we go, 3 of the flush. Again, this would be ace at 31, or I'm sorry, ace jack at 31. A pair of queens. Another quad, that's awesome. King jack offsuit. Pair of 6s. Again, this is kind of a perfect example of why not to gamble when you're tired or not in the right mind space, because you're more inclined to make mistakes. And if you're going to be playing with real money, I wouldn't recommend doing it if you're tired or inebriated or you're stressed out or anything like that. It's not really worth your while to do. You're just kind of throwing money away at that point. This hand is nothing. I got a 4 to a flush. Can we get more than 2? Nope. Open-headed straight. Pair of 2s. Pair of kings. Jacks and 9s. 2 pair. You're always keeping 2 pair. Again, back-to-back 2 pair. Didn't improve, but that's alright. Again, keeping them both because we have a flush interference with the ace. Pair of 9s. Pair of 4s. Pair of aces. Pair of 7s. Just the ace. So, okay, so we have king, queen, 7 suited. We have 9 and ace. So, normally speaking, if you didn't have the 9, this would be king, queen at 50. If you had no ace and the 9, then it would be 40. But we have ace and 9, so this is the same as having another high card in there, like if the jack was in there. This would be 68. We'll demonstrate this one really quick because this one hasn't come up yet. So, king, queen, 7, ace, 9, and as you can see, at it was 68 would be this. We would change it. There you go. At 68, we would drop the 7 and go for the king, queen suited. If I back that up 1, you can see we still keep the 3 to the flush. Again, that has to do with we have straight interference from the ace and the 9, so that's why we're bumping up. Why we're keeping that 7. Jackson 5. Alright, just the ace. A pair of 10s. King jack. 3 to the flush. Okay, so this is an interesting one. We have a 3 to the flush, but we also have an inside straight. Because the flush pays 30 and it gives you a 10x multiplier, and the straight doesn't only pays 20 in this version because this is 964, The 3 to the flush is the play over the inside straight with the ace, and it always is, aside from when we get up to 72 on this. We would drop the 5 of clubs at 72. However, the play is always going to be the 2 suited high cards plus 1 because of the straight only paying so much. Pair of 3s there. Just the ace. Again, 3 to the flush. This would be king ace at 31. Just the king. Pair of 9s. Aces. Going for the straight there. Ace king is too much of a gap there, so you never go for just the ace king suited. You always go for the straight. Just the jack. Alright. King queen suited. Alright, now here's one of those ones where you got jack queen 3 to the flush. So this harkens back again to straight interference. We have an 8, which is straight interference with jack queen. So the thing is, jack queen is the strongest single between jack 10 and jack queen. They're like the strongest 2 card pulls to the royal. They're also very good at filling straights, flushes, straight flushes, etc. So it dictates. This one is one of those ones where you go for this a lot lower multiplier. If you didn't have the 8 in the hand, we haven't demonstrated any of these, so we might as well talk about this a little bit. So we have, we'll just punch in jack queen 5, 8, 3. So the play here is the jack queen, I believe, at 17. Yeah, at 17 we would drop the 5. Again, it's because of the 8 of spades. I'm sorry, 8 of spades. The 8 of diamonds in this hand. But in our case, it's the 8 of hearts. It's the same card. It just has to do with the fact that it's an 8. Anyway, because you would have if you had an 8 or a 9, 8, 9, 10, king, 8, 9, 10, king, or ace all have different values. And then you have cards below 8. So, like, if it was below 8, you would go for this at 14. Okay? So, like, for example, if I got rid of the 8 and we changed this to, say, 4, then we would go for jack queen at 14. Anything below that would be keeping the 3 to the flush. Again, if we change the 4 to a, let's say, a 9, I go to 9 here. If we change it to a 9, it becomes, I believe, 20. And then if you add an ace, it becomes 19. Okay. If ace becomes a 10, it becomes 24. Okay. And if it's a king, it becomes 23. When you would go for the jack queen suited. Whoops. Okay. So in our case, again, it's all about straight interference. That's what it all boils down to here. So our play is to go for the jack king suited 17. So we got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 15, 16, 7. Let's see. 2, 4, 5, 6, 8, 10, 13, 14, 16, 18. We're keeping just the jack queen here. Pair of queens there again. Ace. Nothing else special about that hand. Jacks. Jack king offsuit. Nothing else special there. 3, 4, 6. Single gap inside straight flush. Over the inside straight always. Pair of 2s. One time on the 12. Nope. Couldn't get one. Hoping for it. Going for the inside straight. 4 to a flush. Can we get 2? We can get none. Just the queen here, because that does not stretch. Again, can we do better than 0? No, we can't. That's 0 for 20 on that one. Oh, man. 3 to the flush. Again, when you have a king and nothing else, you always keep the king with a 3 to the flush, even if it's king 10 suited. Pair of 6s. Pair of 4s. Just the ace. Sixes. We have an inside straight against the jack there, but this is not a situation we would ever go for that. When that situation arises, we will talk about it. 6, 7, 8, 9, open-ended straight. Pair of queens. Dealt straight. That's a setup. Let's see if we can actually do something here. King, queen offsuit. Well, at least it wasn't a loser. Ochos. 2 pair. Sevens. Pair of aces. Again, you don't go for a 3 of the flush over jack queen offsuit unless you have a potential for a straight flush draw, and those have their own plays too. Pair of nines. Just the jack. You don't go for the 3 to the flush here either. You just go for the try to fill the straight, or the jacks are better. Nothing there. Aces. Pair of jacks. Bless me. Excuse me. 4 to the flush. Alright, got some jacks. Got some threes. Queen ace suited. Well, that's where all those flushes have been hiding. Aces, can we get 1 times 10? No. Fours. Pair of tens. Kings. Nothing unusual. Nothing weird here. 3, 4, 5, 8, 9. There's no 3 to the flush, and there's no inside straight. Nope. King, queen. You have 3 to the flush, but you also have an inside straight with the ace. This is ace at 41. If you have an ace 3 to the flush, that's not a straight flush draw by itself. You will always go for the straight flush. I'm sorry, not the straight flush. You will always go for the inside straight when it's not a straight flush draw. The inside straight is your play until you get to 41. Jack queen suited. We talked about that one a little bit before with the ace 3 to the flush for the straight. Okay, fine. That's one of those hands. You have an offsuit, 2 offsuit high cards, but you have 3 to the flush. This is would be a 15 because there's no 9 or no 10. Just the jack here. Again, there is an inside straight potential there. But this is, again, this actually would be the situation you would do it, but there's one factor missing. So, again, just the jack here. You had 2 out of 3 prerequisites. I think after this hand, we're going to call it a video. Let's see if we can do anything with this. Let's see. In the video with quads times 10, that would be fantastic. We didn't do horrible, but we didn't do that great either. So, again, we'll continue this session another day, and hopefully this week won't be too chaotic, and maybe we can get another video out this week for you guys. Look forward to seeing you guys next time. Until then, take care.